Good morning. My name is Simcha Felder, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today for our Senate public hearing, an examination of the issue of taxes and fees on carry-out merchandise bags. As everyone is now aware, on May 5th, 2016, the New York City Council passed legislation that would impose a mandatory 5-cent tax on all carry-out plastic and paper bags. This new tax will go into effect on October 1st, 2016. That's why Assemblymember Cusick and I have proposed legislation to prohibit the imposition and/or collection of any such tax or fee or local charge on a carry-out plastic or paper bag in any city in New York State. And I'm honored to have Senator Prasad sitting to my right, the ranking member of this committee, and a co-sponsor of the legislation as well. This bill, Senate Bill 7336, which has been reported out of committee already, is now on the Senate calendar for a vote. Before we took a vote, we thought that it would be helpful for an important issue like this to hold a public hearing by the Senate Standing Committee on Cities, to listen to testimony from policymakers, impacted individuals and groups, and nationally respected experts representing all sides of the issue. It is one that seriously affects the poor and disadvantaged, the environment, our economy, and jobs, as well as public health. That's why a public hearing is so important. So many New Yorkers feel very passionate and concerned on all sides. I would say to you that in all my years of public service, I don't recall ever getting so many calls or emails on any other issue. So I would say that people are passionate. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge my other colleague who's here, Assemblyman Dov Hikind, and of course my counsel, Bob Farley. And in a moment, I will turn to Senator Prasad for any introductory remarks that she'd like to make. I would, before that, however, like to first thank all the witnesses that came today to participate in the hearing. You make this hearing possible, and it's with your help that New Yorkers and others will be well informed. I'd like to request, however, that the witnesses not read testimony. That's an old, I don't know what to say, an old problem of mine. I don't want you to read your testimony. We have copies handed up. I prefer that when you come to testify, just talk, say whatever's on your mind instead of just reading from the testimony. And of course, the testimony will be incorporated as part of the record of this hearing. And again, I want to thank everybody for coming. And with that, I'd like to ask Senator Prasad to make any opening remarks.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator Felder. I am here. I am happy that we're having this hearing. I am not opposed to saving the environment. So I just wanted to make that clear. We do all have an obligation to save our environment, but placing a tax on the use of plastic bags will be hurting people who it was not intending to hurt. When the bill was passed by the City Council, on the television, one store owner said, "Oh, I'm happy we're doing this. Now, the cost will assist us in paying our workers." I don't think that's what it was meant to do. If we are trying to impose a fee at any level, maybe it should be going into an environmental fund, not into the pockets of the owners of these supermarkets and the stores. And the stores are already giving inferior quality bags when they place their produce in there. Why should the consumer be responsible for paying the additional fees that would be imposed? They automatically give you two bags per item when you go into the store. Many of you may have gone into a store, and when they placed your gallon of milk into the first bag, the bag popped, and they had to give you a second bag. Are the consumers responsible for paying for that? Are we responsible for paying because you have not looked at an alternative? We do have to look for an alternative to the use of plastic bags. We do. That's a given. But placing a tax on the use of it is not the way that we should be going. We have to, I'm looking at your bag. Yes, we do have the recycled bags. I was in a store, and the person said, as an older woman came into the store and she brought her reusable bags. The problem is they don't wash them. They opened her bag and there were maggots in the bag. If that checkout worker wasn't conscious enough to look into the bag, they could have been placing her meats or whatever, her fruits into that dirty bag. Then we'll have another problem. So while we want people to use the reusable bags, and we do not want you to be using plastic bags, charging the fee, and it's a minimum of 5 cents fee, so God knows what a stores will do, is not the way that we should be going. We should have a study to find an alternative use to the plastic bags. But charging the fee right now, it's not what we should be doing. So thank you all for coming out here to testify. I know some of you are for it and some of you are against it, and that's what we're here for. But charging the fee is not the way that we should be going at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We're delighted to be joined by Senator Savino, who would like to make some opening remarks.
Brief ones. Thank you, Senator Felder, and of course our colleague Senator Prasad, and I know we're joined by our Assembly colleague Dov Hikind. And I think it's important. I'm going to pick up right where she left off. I think it's important to point out that we share the concerns of many New Yorkers who think that we need to do something about the overusage of plastic bags and how we eliminate them in our environment. I am one of those people that carries many of those reusable bags in my car. I would like to say that I always remember to bring them in the store, but I don't. But I do carry them. What we are concerned about, though, is we want to arrive at a policy that makes sense. Remember, many of us who are concerned about this worked very hard on developing the bottle bill and the bigger, better bottle bill, because we wanted it to apply to all bottles in all stores, in all income levels, so that everybody participated, so that we could achieve an environmental policy that made sense, and that we could have recycling that would achieve a real environmental goal. And I think that's what we want to achieve. In fact, this morning I was delighted to see that New Jersey took a step forward in doing something very similar to that. And that's a model that perhaps we could look at for New York, where you have the money follow the bag, not go into the store. And so let's open up this dialogue. We still have time, I think, to arrive at a policy that makes sense, not just for New York City, in fact, maybe for the rest of the state. Thank you, Senator Felder.
Thank you very much. And with that, Commissioner, ready to hear from you.
Good morning, Senator Felder and members of the Senate Committee on Cities. I didn't know about the prohibition on reading one's testimony, so I will wing it, so to speak.
And I think it'll be even better than reading it.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm willing to adapt on the fly. Obviously, I'm here to testify in opposition to the proposal that you have put forward. The City of New York feels that it's very important to have this law implemented to really make it so that we will reduce waste in the City of New York. And it's not a tax. It is clearly not a tax, otherwise it would have had to go to Albany if it was a tax. And one of the reasons why we didn't pursue it as a tax is that we didn't want there to be a perception that the city was doing it to raise money, because that's not the goal. The goal is that people will actually change their behavior and that we will see a reduction in waste, and particularly a reduction in the 10 billion plastic bags that are used in the City of New York. I mean, that translates into over 1,700 tons a week of material that we have to manage. In addition, there are, for at least from my perception, the worst part of it is what happens in terms of litter across the city. One of the things we see everywhere are bags. even for people who properly dispose of them, they're so light, the plastic ones, that they fly all over them, the street, and they get caught in trees. I know that one of our partners who does a lot of work in community gardens has a very strange contraption to try and pull these out of trees. And we know from recent studies from the New York, New Jersey Baykeeper that much of this plastic also ends up in our waterways. When they did a recent study this spring, they found a huge amount of plastic, and they found a huge amount of plastic bag material in our waterways. In general, that is a problem for all plastics ending up in our waterways. I think EPA projects that there will be, for every 3 pounds of fish, there's going to be a pound of plastic, unless we manage this in a way that's much more effective. And we modeled this bill, or the council modeled this bill, on legislation that has been incredibly effective across the country. And after implementation, many of the cities that have fees, that are significantly higher than 5 cents, have done surveys and asked their communities, both low income and high income, what their satisfaction level was with the bill. And one of the reasons why they had very high satisfaction was because there was a lot less litter. They had cleaner environments. And I think that is really the driver here for this bill. I know that there have been a lot of concerns raised about this public health question. The bill, as currently, the law that will currently go into effect October 1st, does permit you to use the plastic bags that are in the produce aisle that are currently available now. So if you want, you don't have to take your fruit and just throw that into your reusable bag. You're allowed to, it permits those handleless bags that we all use now. And many of the bags that we're promoting are reusable. And folks spoke about the fact that some stores do use very, very thin plastic requiring double bagging. I have to tell you that the bags that we will be giving out, this is one variety. You can put like 4 milk things in here, it will not break. And you can throw it in the washing machine if you need to. And you'd be surprised if you carry this around with you for one day, how many fewer bags you actually bring home. So we are really trying to think differently about waste in this city, and we're doing a lot of things across the board to make recycling easier, to extend it to many communities that had not been participating, to make sure we're doing a lot of education in the schools, as well as continuing to roll out our organics program. And so I think the city's made a real commitment to try and reduce the environmental problems associated with New York City's waste. And I think that we have seen good movement in the right direction across the board. And so we will be doing a very large awareness campaign starting probably in late August in anticipation, that's really focused on not only making sure that we've given supplies of reusable bags to all of our partners who are electeds and community boards and civic associations, but also direct outreach in low-income neighborhoods, primarily in front of grocery stores, to make sure that anyone who needs a reusable bag has one. So we feel confident based on everything that we've learned across the country, because we certainly are not the first city to be contemplating this. Many, many large cities have been contemplating this or have implemented it. And so we are very excited to think about the behavior change and the reduction in waste we will see in New York City. So I do hope that we can end up in a better place.
Well,
Thank you.
I thank you for testifying, and I can tell you without question your oral comments were much better than having read it. I have heard you testify from your notes. Senator Prasad has some questions.
Thank you for your testimony. You said you're giving out the reusable bags in front of these stores. How many bags do you anticipate that you'll have to give?
So our first order before the end of this fiscal year, because you know you got to get it in before July 1st, was we did a 200,000 bag order. The Birdie campaign, the Bring Your Own Bag, Bring Your Own Bottle campaign is doing another 15,000, and then the Department of Environmental Protection is doing 30,000 as part of their Clean Beaches, Clean Streets campaign. And that's just the first roll. We intend to continue to buy them through the fall and going into next year. We look forward to working with any of you who would like to participate in events with us across the city. We want to make sure that we are getting them into everyone's hands.
A question for you. This is just your opinion. Do you think the fee should be going to the store owner?
I think that this is something that will actually work and be effective. This was what made it possible to move this particular bill forward, and I think that it will make a difference. It's easier, obviously, to administer this way, and I think that what we have heard from many of the large associations of grocery store owners is that they want to be a part of this, that they have corporate sustainability goals of their own. They are also going to be giving bag giveaways going into the fall. So I think that this can be something that we can all do well by doing good.
Okay.
Senator Golden, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner and Chairman. I apologize for being late. But the portion or the part of your testimony I heard, I applaud you for your efforts, but I don't believe it's a good policy. I think it's a bad policy. I think it hurts the people across our city. It hurts our seniors. It hurts our families. It hurts the middle class. And you name it, we are it. We're the highest in water taxes. We're the highest in real estate taxes. We're amongst the highest in real estate taxes, especially our business taxes. We are simple phones, cell phones, highest in cell phones. You name it, we are the highest. We beat everybody. And here we go now, putting on a nickel bag on a bag that can be recycled and can be used. And instead of reversing, we've decided to charge the individuals that want to purchase and use those small plastic bags 5 cents. They should have gave the money back to them for returning the bags, not for charging them for the bags. I think that's inappropriate and plain wrong. And so I'm going to stand with my chairman here and many others that are going to oppose this bill moving forward. It's mind-boggling to my constituents that we're doing this. And these reusable bags have not been proven to be sanitary and safe, and we have a death in one city in this country because of it. So I just I'm against the reusable bags. Don't get me wrong. I think we just went around this the wrong way. I think we should have not imposed the red tape that we've imposed on our small business. There's enough red tape on small businesses. Then the small businesses are the backbone of our economy. These plastic bags alone, the industry is going to be devastated. And we have people here in the very boroughs that we live in that make those plastic bags. It's amazing that we're going to cost those jobs here in this city and in this state. So I have, I guess it's more of a statement, and there's no definitive scientific studies that prove taxing plastic bags is the answer either. That's, you're looking at less than 2%, and we've decided to take a number on one industry or one specific item to start to reduce the levels at our different, drop-off points. There is no report that suggests that plastic bags compress to less than 2% of the city waste. None. Therefore, I fail to see how taxing plastic bags will have any significant impact on waste reduction in the city. I'm sure that you're going to have, facts to the contrary, but we have facts to counter that. Most of those bags are made here in the United States, not in foreign countries. Reusable bags, the opposite, made in foreign countries, made with foreign oil. Ours are not. So there's a whole host of reasons why we should not be doing this and impacting on small business, senior citizens, families, and the poor. Those that are within SNAP that pay cash will be charged. Those just above it will unfortunately be charged as tax. Can they afford this tax? No. I mean, you go to a store today, you can have 10, 15 bags, and you add that up over the course of a period of a year, you're talking about a significant impact to a small family. And that's just one tax, Commissioner. That's just one tax. You don't put that on top of our gasoline taxes, our water taxes, our real estate taxes, our small business taxes, taxes on Tide, taxes on everything. We are one of the highest taxed cities in the nation. And we just can't keep going down this route. It's just plain wrong. Commissioner, I'm going to let you respond to that, if you wish to.
No, I mean, I understand your perception that it is a tax. It's not a tax. It is a fee.
Commissioner, I love you. It's a tax. Go ahead.
But we do have over 132 cities and counties in this country who've imposed fees or bans. There are a lot of towns in New York State that have imposed bans on plastic bags. There are over 18 countries that have done it, and everyone has seen significant reductions in waste. And so, I mean, that is really why we are trying to mimic some of those laws to make sure that we really drive down the use, because the idea is not that you pay. The concept here is we really want you to bring a reusable bag and not pay. As you know, the people who are on SNAP or on WIC are exempt.
If they're paying cash, they're not exempt. If they're using the SNAP card, they are.
Right, or if they
but
bring
what
their
about those
SNAP
people
card?
that are right above that level? What about those poor people
I mean,
just above that level?
One of my challenges with this is just philosophical. I don't know why we think that poor people can't remember a reusable bag and wealthy people can. I mean, that's...
Why didn't we exempt them from the bottle bill? Why didn't we exempt them from the bottle bill? Why did they have to pay the 5 cents for bottle? I'm sorry, Senator Golden, but
Senator Savito, I think this commissioner is doing a great job in trying to explain this up, but thank you very much for adding to my testimony. But my question was about the same as where you were going down, but just a little bit different. I'll give her a thought to a chance to come up with the answer for on the bottles.
Can I interject just for a moment? I want to do my interpretation. I think the question, even though it was out of order, but it's okay, was that why would we assume that people who are on WIC SNAP are not capable of doing the same thing that other people are doing? Why were they exempted? If it's not a tax, why were they exempted entirely? If it's just a fee for use, so 1 time, 2 times, as one of the council members mentioned, the purpose is to irritate New Yorkers. Did I get it?
Yes.
You did a very good job.
Thank you.
And I think the commissioner was going down that route, and I want to thank the commissioner for pointing out that poor people are just as smart as the people that have a little bit higher incomes.
Right.
We already know that. We all came from poor families. I'm the oldest of 8, so I understand how it is to grow up. First one to the dinner table was the best fed. The first one up in the morning was the best dressed. So I understand how it is to grow up poor.
And you should hide cookies.
So getting to it, it's not that impact. It's the impact to my seniors. It's the impact to the poor. It's the impact to the middle class. It's a new tax. You can call it a user fee and call it a fee and call it anything you want to call it. It's a tax. Any way you dress it up, any way you put, want to design it, it's a tax. If they really wanted to do something, you wouldn't be giving it. You'd give it to an EPA fund or something along those lines if you had some real thought about cleaning up the environment. And since you haven't decided to do that, and you give it to the store owners, the right way of doing this wasn't to have the store owner charge you 5 cents, but to give you 5 cents back when you bring the plastic bag back. That's what they should have been doing. Now, to come up with the way they've done this is just plain wrong. We got things going on in this country, in this world, right here in this city. And here we are debating plastic bags, 5 cents on plastic bags. I mean, it's a shame that we have to put a committee meeting together like this. It's a shame that we have to put together our senators and assembly.
Yeah, I'd like to ask, just one moment. I want to ask the people who have joined us to refrain from clapping, whether it's for something we like or against something, whatever else, just please. Senator
I'm
Gold?
I'm going to finish
Sorry.
up. I just want to tell Commissioner, I adore what you're doing. You do a fantastic job, and you're a great commissioner. I just think that this is an issue that is misguided, it's wrong, and has to be stopped. And we're going to do our very best to do that. Thank you for your testimony today.
I think, if you don't mind, I'm going to allow Senator Savino to ask her questions, and then you can take the opportunity to respond to both.
Thank you, Senator Felder. Thank you, Commissioner, for your patience. And the issue of whether it's a tax or a fee is really an issue of semantics, and as everyone in this room knows that. The reason it's not a tax is because in order for it to be a tax, you would have needed our authorization in Albany. And what's most disturbing about that is no one ever really came to us to discuss the policy in great depth and how we could achieve a solution to the issue of plastic bags. The way we engaged in that discussion, and I will go back to this as many times as I can today, and the way we engaged in that discussion with the bottle bill. The way we decided that when we developed the bottle bill applies to everybody in the state. Environmental policy only works when everybody buys into it. We didn't say poor people don't have to pay, or if you buy it in a liquor store you don't have to pay, or if you buy it in a pharmacy, because it doesn't work that way. But in your own written testimony, Commissioner, which you didn't read, you reference a law that was adopted by the state. Chapter 641 of 2008 was signed requiring large retailers to set out convenient collection bins in their stores for the express purpose of individuals voluntarily returning their plastic bags for the purposes of recycling. You state in here, in 2014, the law was expanded to include clear film plastic. Although Chapter 641, which preempted city law, that was earlier passed by the City Council, was well intended, we have seen a significant reduction in store compliance with the state law. Who is responsible for enforcing that?
DEC.
Okay. So what steps has the city taken to request DEC comply with this law? What efforts has been, encouraged to get DEC to take a greater role in that? And what are the enforcement mechanisms in place? And how do we make sure that people know that they can recycle these plastic bags?
So, I mean, in many ways, you actually need to talk to the state. We reach out to the state, and I believe we actually propose, I don't know if it ever got introduced, that the city would have enforcement power for that as well, so that we could actually do enforcement. But that has not passed in Albany to date. There was a bill that we had put forward to give the city authority. There are many bills that we have that we don't have authority to enforce, and we know that it's very, when the state is having to do enforcement across the state, we're here. Obviously, it's easier for us to do enforcement. We're already on the streets of New York every day, but we currently aren't allowed to. We've asked for that authority. And so what we've seen is, since there is no enforcement, and it applies to only stores that are much larger than many stores in the city of New York, that we don't see a lot of compliance. We don't see the bins prominently located. I don't know if anyone sees them prominently located at any of the stores that you patronize. Okay. So, I mean, that's one of the things. It's not effectively working. So, I mean, it's one of the council members during their testimony when the bill came up for a vote. She talked about going to California, where there are fees on bags, and she said, I bought one once and I never forgot again. It changed her behavior while on vacation. And so I do think that really thinking about this is in a way of what we know has worked across the country and has really reduced waste significantly, is why that we have gone in this direction. I'll apologize just for not engaging more with our elected officials who serve in Albany. It probably is something we should have done more of. Well, I actually think we always should do more of, but this was really something that we were crafting for a very long time to try and find compromises across the council and move that forward.
Well, hopefully this discussion will continue perhaps around some of the pending legislation that we might continue to address the enforcement of the existing statutes. But we continuously say that we're hoping to get people to change their behavior. And I started this discussion earlier by saying I have a trunk full of these bags, these reusable bags. I bought those bags. It still hasn't changed my behavior. So the idea that making someone pay 5 cents once is going to change their behavior permanently, I think is a little disingenuous. It's certainly not going to change their behavior. But finally, this is going to lead to a whole other enforcement on the part of the city, which is going to require you all to hire some people, from what I've been told. Is it the Department of Sanitation that is going to hire staff to enforce this new policy? And if so, what will they do? How will they enforce it? What will be the mechanism? And who's going to see to it that the stores are somehow complying? And I'll just give you a quick example. The other day I went to Stop and Shop. And Stop and Shop has a lovely policy where they hire the developmentally disabled to give them opportunities, and they do bag, they allow them to bag groceries. And I bought 14 items, and there was a young woman who was bagging my groceries, and she put each one into a separate plastic bag. Now, who is going to see to it that stores don't do that? I didn't have the heart to tell this young woman who thought she was, doing a wonderful job, that I didn't need 14 bags for 14 items. But that's what goes on in a store. How are we going to prevent that kind of, activity? Who is going to enforce this law?
So under the city law, it is the Department of Sanitation and the Department of Consumer Affairs, both of whom have enforcement staff who are on commercial streets every single day of the year. We are not anticipating that we will need a huge amount more staff, because there are a lot of things that we are already there for. So the types of things we're going to look for is that they have proper signage in their store, that there's evidence that when someone is taking a plastic bag that they're charged for. For example, in other cities where this has been put in place, the cash registers have to be reprogrammed. It's not, that is what is required, so that it shows up, so that there's a way to charge for it.
You audit the stores? Or is that what they do in other cities? They audit the stores?
They will ask for evidence of it, but no, we are not planning to audit the stores. We're not planning to be sort of in depth, like a tax audit type situation. But it needs to show up that it actually is occurring. And we think that there will be very broad compliance from everything that we've heard from the associations that represent many of the grocery stores in New York City who do this, particularly the Stop and Shops of the world who have branches across the country. This is not a new thing for them. This is something that they do in a lot of different places. So if you go to a CVS in D.C., and you're visiting and you didn't bring a bag because you didn't know there was a fee, they ask you as they're going through, and you will see the charge on your receipt.
I've purchased things in other cities, but this is my final question. In those cities, do they keep the money in the stores, or does it go to recycling programs?
It depends on the city. It varies. And in many cities, there's a portion of it that the stores do keep, particularly when there are some that are a dime or a quarter a bag.
Senator Hoylman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Persaud, for convening this. I think it's very important that we examine this issue. I would hope that the state legislature, as we are doing today, will take its time and understanding the issue as fully as our colleagues at the City Council have. It's my understanding, how many years has the City Council been looking at this issue?
More than 2 years.
So I think we have some time to catch up, and I believe we're at the beginning of that process today. I also would hope that we wouldn't act rashly, because the City Council has a pilot program basically in place that we can watch, observe, and measure. Clearly, the issue of plastic bags is a problem. You laid it, I think, out very clearly in your testimony. 10 billion bags are used and thrown away each year in New York City. My question for you is, what happens to those bags? How much does it cost you and your agency to retrieve them? And finally, what are the parameters of the bag recycling project in New York City? Are plastic bags, in fact, being recycled?
Certainly. So we estimate that the cost based on the tonnage that we've gotten from our waste characterization studies, that it costs about $12.5 million a year just for collection and disposal of plastic bags. Plastic bags in New York City end up going to landfill or to waste to energy facilities that we contract with. And if if someone makes a mistake and puts them into the recycling, they are actually considered a contaminant under our contract with our recycling because they shred and get caught in the machinery. I don't have good numbers on how many bags are being brought back under the state law. They don't report back to the city, DEC, on what those numbers look like. But we know that we're still seeing large volumes of plastic bags coming to us. So we just don't think that it's been effective.
I think the EPA says about 5% of plastic bags are recycled nationwide annually. And some of the plastic bag manufacturers claim it's upwards of 15%. In either case, it's not a lot. What are the companies that actually recycle plastic bags, and do they even have a presence in New York City?
I don't know the answer to that question, but there's never been a stable market for film plastics, and particularly right now, where the recycling markets in general have been down because of fuel prices. We don't see that. We don't know of anyone in the city who is actually remanufacturing plastic bags, but I would have to double check that.
So would it be fair to say that the council's bill addresses a market failure in terms of recycling plastic bags?
Well, I mean, I think it's twofold. One is when you think about waste, you really have to think of it through the lens of what we consider the hierarchy. So the best use is always reuse. That puts much less pressure on the environment than even recycling. So recycling is good, reuse is better, because that reduces taking raw materials out of the environment and recreating something new. So as much as we're trying to get to a closed loop on our materials management, we really want to focus on that reuse component going forward.
And I know your expertise is not necessarily the impact of plastic bags on the environment, but surely you have an understanding of what it does in terms of plastics in our waterways, in our parks, in our landfills. Can you give us an assessment of that?
Certainly. I mean, it causes issues, as I've spoken of at pretty great length in terms of litter. And actually that's why people who have passed these bills in other cities end up liking the bill, is because they see a real reduction in litter. And so that's very important to the ongoing embrace of these sorts of bills across the country. And as I said earlier, the New York, New Jersey Baykeeper recently did a study that found that in New York Harbor there are 165 million plastic particles currently, right now, and about 18% of those are made from plastic bags that are sort of shredded as they ended up going through the wastewater treatment plant or through the combined sewer system. In addition, we know that anything that you try and put down the drain, which is basically what the sewer system is, can get clogged if you put things that it's not designed to take, whether or not that's plastic or grease or something else, and that causes street flooding or sewer backups. It's hard to quantify what percentage of the problem that is, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of those occurrences every year. So, I mean, I think that there needs to be a real focus on what's happening to our waterways with plastics in general. And this is a way to really try and drive that down.
And what kind of standards or measurements do you foresee once the law goes into effect, in terms of assessing its effectiveness?
Right. The law was very carefully crafted to really require the department to do quite a bit of analysis of what its impact is, both on the environmental side as well as on the impact on low-income communities. We intend to do what we call a waste characterization study before those studies are done, where we literally take material from all of our collections and literally hand pick it apart and then weigh everything. That's where we come up with the 2.3% of waste is somebody literally picked through bags of garbage to determine that. We also will be doing surveys of people across the city to find out how they feel about the implementation of this law. And so we think that we'll be able to design some really strong analytical information, which is required of the department.
And final question, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Is there a sister city that you've examined which you'd like to emulate in terms of the rollout of this legislation? And secondly, what has been the collective response from their citizens in terms of this plastic bag fee?